So you've just received your term sheet for the transaction. What are the key terms to consider in all term sheets, regardless of the transaction? The first key term would be the parties. This may seem obvious, but you need to make sure that you're contracting with the correct entity. If the other side is proposing to use a subsidiary or a new entity, you'll want to make sure that the entity you're contracting with has the necessary finances or rights. Also, are there other parties you want to sign off on the terms, whether it's founders, key stockholders, the board of directors, or a parent company? Again, the primary purpose is to make sure that everyone who is important to the transaction is on the same page before proceeding. The second key term to consider is the purpose of the transaction. Often this is obvious, such as the acquisition of a company or a financing. In other cases, such as a joint venture or a partnership, it may not be as clear. Whatever the transaction, the term sheet should be clear as to what the parties are looking to accomplish. The third key point in all term sheets would be consideration. Almost every transaction involves some type of price, whether it's a purchase price for a business, an investment, a license fee, or a service agreement. Whatever the transaction, the term sheet should make clear who gets paid, how much gets paid, when that amount gets paid, and the form of consideration and who is obligated to pay that. A fourth key consideration would be closing conditions. What needs to happen in order for a transaction to close? This could be requiring consents, this could be third-party or governmental approvals, this could be additional documentation. A fifth key consideration would be expenses. Who is going to pay the expenses of the transaction, and when does that get paid? In some situations, the expenses provision may be binding in the term sheet, and therefore obligate one of the parties to pay the expenses of the other if the transaction does not proceed. In other situations, the expenses provision may be non-binding until you reach definitive documentation. So make sure you read that provision carefully. Another key term in a term sheet is confidentiality. This is typically a binding provision, so make sure that it's clear who can disclose what to whom. And finally, exclusivity. This is not always included in term sheets, but if it is another binding provision. And the purpose is to prevent a party from pursuing another transaction while negotiations are ongoing. So these are the key terms to consider when reviewing any term sheet. If you understand these key points, you're well on your way to understanding and negotiating a term sheet.